This is just for your consent that we are recording this session and we will share this recording with you all. Okay. So guys, when we are talking about interview preparation, so what happens? There is a very generic and like very important interview questions that can you explain about your infrastructure? Like how does the traffic flow? For example, if I talk about here, there's a particular website named ServerGyan. Let us call it any name we can give it. Like servergyan.com, right? So now what if you type in this particular name in browser? So what happens? How does your backend behave? So is there anyone who can explain this particular thing? Like how does this thing work? If I type in servergyan.com in browser and that comes in my browser, I am able to access the website. It's not only about ServerGyan, about any domain. So how does it work? What all components you guys are going to introduce, you guys are going to include in your infra diagram explanation? Yes, guys.
Sir, is the DNS route 53?
Okay. Let us draw that. Like we have a particular internet. There is a particular user. Let us say this is an actor. This actor is going to hit my website over internet. Now what would happen?
The request will go to DNS routing.
Okay, let us call it route 53. In case of AWS, otherwise we call it DNS.
Yeah.
Because it could be possible that we might have registered our domain with GoDaddy, maybe with Google, maybe with any other domain service provider. So calling it route 53 will not be a good idea. We call it like the request will go to DNS. In our case, it is going to be route 53. Then what next?
API gateway, sir.
Okay.
Or WAF. Firefox.
Let us call it API gateway. Okay, API gateway then?
From the load balancer.
Okay, this is as you are explaining, right? Okay, load balancer then?
From there to application web server.
Okay, web server. Then?
Application server.
Okay, application servers. Then? What next?
I don't have in-depth knowledge in that.
Okay, any other one?
Database it will hit.
Yes, guys, any other one would like to explain anything about it?
How about from the route 53, it will go to
From
lab,
route 53, it will go to?
the, um, the laptop network card, then the IPv4 subnet mask gateway, then the DHCP of DNS.
DHCP of DNS.
Yeah. Then the
Okay.
ISP of DNS.
Okay. ISP of DNS then?
Then the NISP of DNS.
Okay.
Then the Google DNS. The root DNS.
Okay.
And then the domain register.
Okay.
Like GoDaddy.com or.
That is fine. Finally, the particular DNS has completed its work. Now, what will happen next?
Before load balancer, there is firewall. I think.
There is firewall. Okay, we can place before load balancer. We can put a particular rule for firewall. Let us call it firewall. In our case, if we are talking about AWS, then it is going to be security group, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that is fine. Now what next?
After the DNS, it should go to the CDN, the content delivery network.
Okay, it will go to CDN.
Right.
Okay,
Like Akamai CloudFront or Cloudflare we're using, and from
okay,
that particular,
whatever, that's fine. CDN, then fine. What next?
after that, it will hit to the like web server first. That would be in our public subnet.
It will be a web server first. Load balancer will not be in place.
It can be, it totally depend upon the scenario. If I say that after the web, because in the web server, if I using the Nginx, so Nginx can handle the requests, so many requests, because Nginx can also be using the
So
web
Nginx
cache.
Nginx will work here as load balancer or as a web server.
It can work as a both, because it also, we can also use as a web cache server or a reverse proxy.
See, this is going to be a very, very interactive discussion, guys. Why it is so? Because during interview, whenever you say anything, so the person asking you questions can ask the same questions as we are going to discuss today, right? So be ready for this sort of discussions. That is why we are here to discuss questions, right? Okay. So guys, the very first thing, okay, yes, you guys explained it well, but let us take it in more granular level. Why it is so? Because if we do not understand the concept and if we try to just give rough answers, so it is not going to be a good idea. So how we are going to take it forward today? So let us say we have a domain, let's call it servergyan.com. Right, as soon as we type in this particular, so obviously, first of all, people try to know two things about this particular concept. First of all, that what do you know about DNS naming convention, right? So you should be knowing about what are the type of DNS. Then after, what is the particular purpose of using DNS? Then when we type in any domain, for example, let us say I'm going to type in flipkart.com in my browser. So what would happen here? Right? So there are two things. The question was, when I asked you this question, that can you explain me about your infrastructure diagram? Like how does your infrastructure look like? That was the main question, right? But you guys explained about DNS. That was a great thing to have. You guys explained about the infrastructure, right? So these sort of things you started explaining. That was really nice. But guys, we need to focus on the question first. Whether a person is trying to know about that, how does this thing get resolved, or is a person trying to know about that how the work of DNS goes on, right? So we are going to explain, we are not going to discuss about DNS part first. We will talk about this particular component, which is known as infrastructure diagram, right? Okay, so guys, first of all, we have an actor. This is going to be our end user for us, right? After that, we will have one more user here. Let us say there are two users. Then when these two users are trying to access the same website, what is going to happen here? So first of all, definitely request will be forwarded to DNS. Now, there could be a particular question that how does this request reach to DNS, right? There can be a question. So for that, we will discuss separately that how does this particular segment, that a user using a laptop, let us call it, let us say this user has a laptop and this user is trying to access website with the help of this laptop, right? So when this user is trying to access this website with the help of this laptop, so how it is going to work? First question will be this, and second question like how does your infrastructure look like? So guys, this is internet, right? So over this internet, we have a particular concept, and this concept is known as DNS. So whenever we purchase a domain, obviously there has to be authority who is authorized to provide domain names to end users, to customers, to everyone, right? Whosoever is willing to have a domain. So there is a particular domain registrar, right? So that particular domain registrar is held responsible for providing DNS services as well. Guys, keep this thing in mind. Whenever we purchase a domain, so we get a DNS server endpoint as well, where actually the domain which we are going to purchase, that will be resolved, right? So we will call it DNS. So as soon as this user is going to hit domain name into browser, then first of all request will reach to DNS. So guys, are we aware of that? How does this request reach to DNS? Say it clearly. If yes, then okay. If no, then let me know. I will explain.
With the URL, sir.
Pardon?
URL, uniform resource locator.
So I'm just trying to say that if I hit a domain name into my laptop's browser, so request reaches to DNS first. So are we aware of that? How does this DNS is going to resolve the domain name to IP address? Are we aware of this concept?
Through public IP or private IP?
No. I am talking about, let us say, I don't know about whether it is hosted on private or public IP address. For example, it is an intranet website, not internet. The website is accessible over intranet only. Then even the same concept will be used.
Please explain.
Okay, great. So let us take it on a new page. So guys, let us say there is a particular complete system I'm going to create over here. So let us say there is a particular user. There is an actor who is using this laptop, right? The person tries to access the domain known as servergyan.com. The user is trying to access this domain for the very first time. The user has never accessed this domain before, right? This is the very first time user is trying to access it. So what would happen? So when we talk about laptops, so there are two things. There are two types of LAN cards available. Either it can be a Wi-Fi or it could be LAN. There are two types of LAN cards. There are two types of like the interface available where we connect our device to internet or maybe to Wi-Fi or maybe intranet, whatever you like to call it, right? So when we have Wi-Fi or maybe LAN, so these particular LAN cards have two like couple of components within itself. First of all, it will contain an IP address. It will be a private IP address. It will contain a private IP address here, right guys? Then after, it will contain one more component known as subnet. Subnet mask, it could be like in form of, let us say /20, or it could be in form of, let us say 255, okay, .255.255.0, or maybe anything it could be, right? So this is going to be format of our subnet mask. Either someone can write /20 or like someone can write 255.255.255.0. So this sort of subnet mask will be there. After that, it will contain one more component that is known as gateway, right? Then after, it will contain DNS. So DNS is going to be such a component. Guys, can you please mute yourself if you are not speaking? Yes, that is fine. Thank you. Thank you so very much. So guys, we are talking about here DNS. So this is the major component which we are trying to discuss right away, right here. So guys, we need to understand like there's going to be one IP address. That is going to be private IP address for sure. There is going to be subnet mask. There is going to be one gateway. There is going to be one DNS. So if I talk about my system, if I go to my terminal and I try to show you a couple of things here. See guys, there is some sort of information available here. So first of all, this is a particular loopback information, right? Like it says flag up, MTU. There are some sort of information available. But guys, if you check a little down, then there are different type of network like ENS. So it shows that it has some IP address range, right? Like it has some like internet IP address range. It is showing like 172.16.1.3. This is IP address range here. This is broadcast IP address range here, right? This is broadcast IP address, IPv6 address it has. In the same way, if I try to figure out that if there's a Wi-Fi like Wi-Fi IP address available, if I try to see, so over there I am going to check. I'm going to find that some sort of additional information will be available, right? Like about my gateway, about DNS, and about rest of things, right, guys? So these sort of information we can figure out, like what is going to be configuration, what is MAC address, broadcast, and other address information. We can easily figure it out, right, guys? Okay, this is MAC, so it will not work here. So okay, guys. So as we see, like we can get the information related to a particular interface. So it contains IP address, subnet mask, gateway, and DNS. These sort of information we usually get inside a LAN card. So now when we are talking about DNS, so DNS itself is a really complicated and a really big concept. So if I talk about DNS here, so the very first type of DNS is known as caching only. So guys, what is caching only DNS server? Yes, guys, what is caching only DNS server? Ankit Bishnoi.
Session management.
Caching management is something different.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Ankit.
Yes, sir. It's caching means to keep a copy of that in particular site, like a website, to fetch anything so fastly.
Okay.
Actually, we use the DNS caching to retrieve the to reach our destination with low latency.
Okay, that is fine. Anyone else would like to try? Alok Kumar Malik.
Yes. I think caching in the sense, say for example, you are trying to hit any website. Say for example, this is servergan.com. So person went and particularly hit that IP and fetch the information from servergan.com. When next time you hit that, it is already in your cache. So it will fetch the information from the cache instead of directly going to the actual place.
Okay. Anyone else? And where from does this what is the actual source of this DNS? Because it is caching only. So actually it requires some sort of destination server where from it can actually fetch the information. What is the actual source of DNS here? Anyone? Guys, please feel free to speak.
Sir, actually in DNS we have some architecture, that means it has set of mappings to IP addresses like that.
Okay.
If frequently accessed websites will be in cache.
Okay, Rahul Kumar, you are right. You are right. Up to an extent, you are right. But we need to understand more.
Yeah, what I feel is like basically there will be in operating system, there will be one database server, and from there it will be like something is cached means it will be quick to load that.
Okay. Okay, so guys, first of all, as and when we understand cache, so we need to understand that something is being served very fast and from the data which is stored somewhere locally. Like the actual source is not going to be hit every single time. We need to understand that concept first. So if someone says about cache or caching, which means that the original source is not going to be hit. Hit means like we are not going to access the data from original original source, not very frequently we are not going to go to that, right? So what happens here? So when we, let us not have only one actor. We have couple of actors here. Actors means like users we are talking about, right? But in our case, so we call them actors. Let us have one more actor here. So guys, right now we have 5 actors. We have same domain. So let us say this actor hit very first time servergyan.com. So how does request work? So request will go to caching only DNS server, which is a local DNS. And let us say we have 500 or maybe we have 1000 employees working in the same office building. So what we can do here is, because see what happens every single time we are going to access any domain. So the request goes to actual DNS server, and that takes some time to resolve every single request. So rather than reaching out to that server every single time, we configure a server, or we configure a laptop, you can call it desktop or whatever you want, you can call it. So we configure a local DNS server, and that is held responsible for that whenever these users are going to access any website, they will request you. If you do not have any information related to this, then what you are going to do here, you are going to forward the request to your nearby DNS server, and this nearby DNS server is provided to you by your ISP. ISP means Internet Service Provider DNS server, because whenever you go for any broadband connection or maybe leased line, so they do not only provide you an IP address, they provide you some other information like subnet mask, like gateway and DNS. So this is the actual DNS server which ISP hold, and obviously this is not the DNS server which holds the information about entire like internet websites. So servergyan.com is going to be such a component which will not be held by our DNS server as well. Means this ISP DNS as well. Now, this ISP will look for maybe some near ISP, because it could be possible that it is also being used only to pass on the information to some other DNS. So it can forward the request to near ISP. Near ISP DNS. For example, let us take a very, very hypothetical example that no one has the information about this domain. For example, this domain is hosted just before 2 minutes, and I am the first one who is accessing this domain very first time over internet. So neither my local DNS will have information, nor this ISP DNS will have information. So definitely we can consider even this near ISP DNS will also not have the information about this domain name. So where it will go? For example, this near ISP DNS server has configured that I do not rely on anyone. I rely only on Google DNS, which is 8.8.8.8. You might have used this particular IP address range somehow, somewhere or the other. So this is known as Google DNS. Right, guys, 8.8.8.8, this is DNS server of Google. For example, even no one has searched it before, so Google DNS caches only those information which have already been searched. So Google is also very new to it. This domain is very new to Google itself. So Google will say that I do not have information of this domain name, so I can forward you to a root DNS server. So now what is this particular stuff? What is root DNS server, guys? So there are different type of domains like .com. Let me increase the font size. So let us say we have .com. Guys, how many .com domains we have? How many top level domains do we have?
So .io, .org.
Okay, so Anurag, let me tell you this thing. So earlier we used to have only 13 top level domains. That is known as TLD, top level domains. These used to be 13, right? But number of, as soon as like internet is in the air, everywhere, every single person is trying to have its own website. Even some people, I have seen that rather than publishing their resume, so what they have done here is they have created their own biography in the form of a website, like whatever they have done so far. Like they have purchased a domain name in their name, and they are using that website as a reference for their resume. Right. So there are a number of domains available, but initially there were only 13 top level domains. These were known as like top level domains. So this .com, aside to it, we might have .edu. You might have heard of .org, .gov, .nic, and what else?
So country specific domain.
Yes, these are known as like SLD, secondary level domain,
Okay.
like .co.in,
Yep.
.co.uk, .au, .as, .ki. These sort of like third level domain, they are known as second level domain. Like Google has google.co.in India. Whenever we access Google, so like most of the time it says like google.co.in. Right, so it is showing google.com. What is domain here? google.co.in. Right, guys? So this is known as second level domain. Okay, so whenever, let us say that these are the domains, these are the like top level domains. So what is my domain here? In my case, .com. So what root DNS, what Google will do? Google will forward my request to root DNS server. So guys, root DNS server is held responsible to understand and to inform to every single request, whosoever is going to .com domain. So root DNS server will be responsible to provide information that who is domain registrar. Because definitely guys, if we have a domain with us, if we have any domain registered, so there has to be some domain registrar as well, right? So it will provide us information about domain registrar. In short form, I have written it as registrar. So let us say it has provided me information about GoDaddy, right? So now GoDaddy is going to be responsible, because whenever we host a domain, so guys, we need to keep this thing in mind. We get two type of records. First of all, we get NS, like name server. Like DNS, we call it like domain name server. Record type is NS, like name server, and in actual form we call it DNS server, right? Domain name server. Then after, the second record type is SOA, start of authority, right? So these two, as and when we host or we purchase any domain, so by default we get these two record set. So because GoDaddy has the SOA record set with itself for a domain, then obviously the GoDaddy name servers will be responsible to provide me information that where this particular server is hosted, right? So now, end of the day, in a recursive form, like obviously this DNS is going to ISP, near ISP, Google DNS, root DNS, and domain registrar. End of the day, domain registrar will provide information about the actual hosting address, right? So now it will not only provide the information to my DNS, but the particular route which my local DNS, or you can call that my caching only DNS server followed. So the same request will be cached every single place, because right now this near ISP, if someone is going to come, maybe some other vendor, maybe some other customer is going to come to this near ISP. Now it will have information that this domain registrar is GoDaddy. So it will not forward the request to Google DNS, root DNS server. It will directly forward request to this domain name provider. Are we clear with that?
Yep.
One more thing. Now, let us say this is the first customer, this is the first user who was trying to access servergyan.com. So request has to flow till this level. But now what would happen? Let us say this user and remaining these three users are going to hit the same website on their laptop itself. So what is going to happen? This request would not be forwarded to ISP. This caching only DNS server, this DNS server will be responsible to provide information about the IP address, like mail exchange record and other record, whatever these users are trying to access from this point itself. Means caching only DNS server will be responsible to provide information about the record sets of this domain. Because once this particular DNS server gets the information from domain registrar, so this domain registrar provides the information with some sort of TTL. Guys, what is it? there is a particular value known as TTL.
The time to live.
Anything else apart from this definition?
For how long this I mean request will cached or I mean stored temporarily.
Okay, but where it is going to be stored, how we are going to define this TTL, what should be standard value of this TTL? Anyone who wants? Let us have this Q&A round now. Anyone?
This information is stored in the, like a TCP header, like because IP protocol, right? Because IP protocol contain all such kind of information.
Okay.
Take that how long it will take the packet to the destination, on the time to take.
No,
to
actually.
depend.
No, actually, you are not taking it in a right way. That is something else. Okay, let me ask someone. Ashish, there is a candidate with the name as Ashish. Ganesh, guys, please be available, be interactive while we are into this session.
Time to live.
Okay, Abhijit Madhukar Patil.
Yes, sir. How it's in ISP? How terms it how many times it store the records in ISP DNS?
Okay,
We can
let me
specify,
come. I got your point. I got your point. So let us say there is a particular type of record which is known as A record. A record. And what is use of A record? It converts domain name to IP. Especially IPv4, right? So A record is held responsible to convert information as a domain name. For example, this IP address, this domain name is hosted on some IP address, let us call it maybe 13.53.91. Maybe 87.87, right guys? So this is an IP address where my domain is hosted. This is just random address, what I thought randomly, and I just mentioned it here. So if I try to query my domain name server or maybe the domain registrar server, so it is going to provide me this IP address along with some information. And what sort of information that is going to be? Like that is known as TTL. TTL is going to be maybe 3600 seconds. So what does it mean 3600 seconds? 1 minute equal to 60 seconds and 60 minutes equal to 3600 seconds. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, that is just pure mathematical calculation. Now, let us say I am very sure that I do not change the domain name against this IP address very frequently. So why do I need to keep this particular as 3600 seconds? I know that my website is going to be static. So why do I want that my end users are going to hit internet every single time they are going to my actual DNS server in order to get the information of this IP address? Why should I not do that? I can keep 74320, like let us say like somewhere around three days, for example, right? Maybe I do not want to change this particular information for 10 days, right? So this TTL is kept in such a way, keep this thing in mind guys, this particular TTL is kept in such a way that we are going to provide this information for next 10 days. Like this particular DNS will keep on serving the information that the IP address of this website is this for next this much time. Right, guys? Now,
Sir, I have a question. So
yeah,
where we are defining this TTL?
So whenever we are going to create a DNS record, so at the time of DNS hosting, we have to define this TTL value. This TTL value is defined in DNS server record set option.
This is one-time setup, or we can change it
You can
accordingly.
change it. You can change it. But there, where is the problem? For example, this IP address, or maybe this server is hacked. For example, this IP address is hacked. This server is hacked where the IP address was appointed, where the IP address was associated. This server is hacked now. Some other person has hosted some malicious content over here, which is really not good. That could be anything, means anything, right? Maybe there is a particular competitor of mine who has like hired some sort of hackers, and now they are trying to access my website. So they are hosting, they are running their promotion on my website. So what would happen? So if I try to change, let us say rather than having 91, maybe I can define a 31, 87 will become maybe 187 or something like. So if I try to host my website on some other server, then till this time is not completed, these local caching DNS servers will not come to me in order to go for new IP address of my website. Because I have said very clearly that for like this much time, 74,230 seconds, this IP address will remain same. This is the only drawback of having very high value of TTL. Because if due to any unforeseen circumstances, if I have to change the IP address of my website, if I have to change the value of my domain record to any new record, then that does not get populated at very immediate level. That can take up to 3 days. So for example, those guys who are working on DNS server, so whenever they get a request, so they have to define that it might take up to 72 hours to change to take effect globally. Whenever we point a new IP address, so we have to define it in writing that we have done the changes on DNS server, and it might take up to 72 hours to take the effect globally, because our TTL is going to be 72 hours. That is the only drawback here. So guys, I hope that we are clear with this particular, like how does it work? When we type in a particular domain name into browser, so how does it resolve? What is TTL value here? Are we clear with this?
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Any questions are welcome here.
Sir, if we give it for 3 days, and DNS cache will route to our server only, na sir? So whatever the changes we made in our website, that will reflect to the user, right?
Right. So all the changes, whatever you are going to make in your website, in your server, those will be visible to server. But my dear, like the statement which I was trying to point out here is, let us say if you are not making changes in a website, but you are planning to host, for example, today you are hosting your website with AWS, but it is a little high, at higher end of cost. So you plan to go with maybe DigitalOcean, maybe Hostinger, maybe Google Cloud, maybe any other like provider. For example, like now the IP address of website is 11.21.34.56, right? So this user will try to access domain name servergand.com in its browser. This DNS cache has stored the information against this domain name as my previous IP address, not the latest one. So it will keep on sending a request to previous server only. The new users, or the let us say whenever the particular this DNS server will end up with that the TTL value, the new request will be originated from this user request. This DNS server will say, now I do not hold the information, I'll have to go to actual server. This DNS server will go to this particular domain registrar server. This server is going to provide information to latest IP address, which is this. Only then, maybe after 3 days, this user will be able to access the latest changes on your website. If IP address is going to remain same, you are making modification. Let us say you are going to upload new image, new banner, new pages, new content on your website, then definitely user will be able to see the impact only after refreshing the browser, nothing else. So are we clear with this?
I have one query.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, actually we have mentioned, right, 11.21. That is in the actor IP or in a website IP, that one.
So this is our servergyan.com's IP address. This is the IP address which is associated with the server where my website is running.
Yeah, right. So every actor have different IP, right?
So it could be possible, let us say, if all the 5 users are working behind a same router or maybe same LAN, these users are sitting. So
No,
these 5. Mhm.
see, for example, so everyone work from home, right? So that is depend upon our network, right? Everyone using in hotspot or a different network. So
Right.
everyone have a different IP, right?
Right.
Then the TTL number will be website TTL or every actor TTL, that one.
So that TTL is related to website, not related to this actor.
Yeah, got it. TTL is in the website and IP is a different actor.
Yeah,
Means every
different
actor
actors might have different IP addresses. But whenever, let us say, this actor is sitting in Mumbai, for example, this
Yeah.
actor is sitting in Chennai, this
Yes.
actor is sitting maybe in Kolkata.
Yeah, different IPs. Yes.
So the requester will have different IP address, but end of the day, if you try to ping servergyan.com from this actor, this IP address will be same. If like this IP address, these actors have a different vendor, maybe like this was using Tata, this is using Airtel as broadband
Yeah,
service
yes.
provider. So
Yes.
IP address of these, like source IP address of these actors are going to remain different, but the website IP address will remain same for every single actor who are sitting in different geographical region within same country.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, let us say it could be possible that this actor might get an update from local DNS server soon, but this actor requested the website very late, and will have to wait for next 32, like next 72 hours in order to get the latest update from this DNS server. So that will be depending like when the information of this website was cached by this DNS server.
So we can see in IP config in two IPs, right? Then
so we can have multiple IP addresses. Like we can have a maximum 3 DNS server we can have in our IP configuration.
Actor IP and website.
Not actor IP. So whenever we are trying to go to internet, so actor IP address is a local IP address, as I mentioned here.
Yes.
But
Yes.
whenever we will try to access internet, so there is a particular concept of netting like network address translation. So for accessing internet, this particular Wi-Fi will provide you public IP address as well. We will discuss that later on. That part we will discuss later on.
Okay, thank you.
Because we cannot access internet with a private IP address.
Yes.
Any other questions so far?
Yes, sir. If we reduce the detail time, then what happens?
Pardon?
Yes, we sir reduce the TTL time as per our requirement. Then what happens?
Okay, so let us say if I keep this TTL as 60 seconds. For hypothetical example, right? So what happens? This is a caching DNS server, as I told you earlier. So this will hold the information of this IP address for 60 seconds only. After every 60 seconds, this caching DNS server will have to go to our domain registrar's DNS server. So which means after every 60 seconds, every single request coming from a like new user will have to be traveling to this particular domain registrar. This is going to take some additional time in order to resolve the domain name against IP address. Otherwise, there is no other difference. Like only some additional time will have to be spent by our users in order. Well, let me tell you, like ideal time here is maybe like 24 hours. Because if we have to change the domain name server, so that is not very frequent. And obviously, guys, that depends on the use cases. For example, if you're a domain service provider, you restart your DNS server every single day. So you can keep it 24 hours. But let us say if you have hosted your website and you are not planning to change the IP address of that website very frequently, so you can keep it maybe for up to 3 days as well. That depends on the use case. From 24 to 72 hours you can easily have. And if during interview someone is going to ask you that what is the TTL of your website, you can define like we have TTL of 24 hours because we do not change IP address of our domain very frequently. So in order to reduce DNS resolving time for our end users, we have kept it as 24 hours. Right?
Where we assign TTL?
On DNS server. Whenever we create a new record set, so that record set has to have some TTL value.
That if we have a TTL value very less, then user will get that website in a accessing that web page will be take time.
I must not call that the user will have to face some sort of slowness. What would happen every single time? Because see, in that particular case, the particular caching DNS server will be of no use. Why it is so? Because every single minute, if this user's request is being taken forwarded to like actual domain, or you can call that domain registrar's DNS server. So it is of no use to have the caching only DNS server in picture. Because caching only DNS server is used only in order to ensure that the particular request which these users are making in order to access the domain is really faster. So these users are not waiting for this domain name server provider to provide an IP address against the domain name which is servergyan.com. So if TTL is very less, maybe up to 30 seconds if it is, so DNS caching server will not be of any use. Am I clear on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question, guys, here? Otherwise, I hope that this concept is clear. So we will move towards this particular segment, like infrastructure explanation part.
Sir,
I have one doubt.
Please go ahead.
Suppose this IP, I mean, internet, we are studying internet. So is this anything, I mean, changing here, or, I mean, within the company, suppose we are, I mean, all the employees accessing. So what will be the change?
I didn't get your question. I'm sorry to say, I did not get your question. What you are trying to ask?
The intranet, like within company, suppose we are accessing any site.
Okay.
So how that will be different from outside?
Okay. So let us say if, for example, today there is a culture that everyone is working from home.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
it will rarely be possible that 5 employees are accessing your main website from the same IP address, because 5 employees do not have the same broadband provider, right?
Okay.
So what happens here, like let us say, as I told you, like this user is sitting in Mumbai, this is in Kanpur, this is in Kolkata, this is in maybe Delhi, this is in Ghaziabad. So every single user is going to have a different like DNS service provider, right?
Yes.
So in that case, if we try to set a particular DNS server as caching only, right? So now if you see that this particular user will have a separate DNS caching only server, this will have a separate caching only DNS server, same thing will be applied with these 3 users as well, right?
Okay.
So when every single user has its own caching only DNS server, so it is not good idea to implement caching only DNS server for single users. For example, if we have maybe 100 users, if we have 500, maybe 1000, maybe 2000 users sitting in the same building, same office premises, then it is of use. It can be of use. Otherwise, for a single user, it is of no use to set up caching only DNS server. Why it is so? Because if a user access a website once, so definitely the user will get to know about the IP address and the other information of it, right?
Sir, I have
Yes.
a question. So
Please.
are we changing the IP of this servergyan.com very frequently?
So if we are changing IP address very frequently, so guys, obviously the TTL will be very less, maybe up to 60 seconds, because as soon as we make the changes, so like new IP address should be made available to our end users very immediately. That is why it is going to be capped as 60 seconds. So if there is any caching DNS server, so this is going to hold the information of this IP address for 60 seconds only. After every 60 seconds, this user's request will be taken forwarded to domain registrar DNS server.
Okay, so the point is that DNS caching is directly related to TTL. I mean, whatever the TTL we are setting, and it will I mean, keep the request only for that time, right?
Right.
Okay.
Any other question, guys, here? Because see, these are the concepts which we know, but we do not know like how it is working in backend. So shall we move to infrastructure guide, like explanation, dears? Shall we go ahead?
Sure.
So like an actor will send request to DNS now, and we know that in our case it is going to be DNS route 53, because we are talking about here we are talking about AWS concept, so definitely it will be known as route 53. Now guys, let us have a particular block here, because obviously we are going to create secure infrastructure, and that will be treated as maybe some VPC, some other component we can discuss here, right? So okay guys, first of all, as soon as the request comes, so request will be forwarded to some sort of DNS server, some sort of load balancer. This is very, very basic diagram which we are going to talk about right now. Going forward, as soon as we will move ahead within this process of learning infrastructure diagram, so at least this will take maybe 2 hours approx it is going to take. So definitely today as well as tomorrow we are going to continue with the same thing, because till the time, because see, it will include at least like 15 to 20 interview questions. It will include at least 15 to 20 interview questions, guys. So please keep on making notes as and when I say this is important, right? So you can write it down in your notebook or wherever you want. So keep on making notes. So this is going to be a very, very, like, you can call it like 20,000 feet overview of infrastructure diagram. Gradually we will start deep diving, and we will go to actual like diagram of real infrastructure, that how do we try and how do we set it up, right? So first of all, we have end user, we have laptop, we have website, and request will go to DNS. DNS system we have already understood here, that how it is going to reach out to this particular load balancer, right? So this is going to be ELB, like elastic load balancer it is going to be. Now behind elastic load balancer, guys, we have target groups, right? We have target group here. This will be known as your ELB, right? So request from this DNS will come to this load balancer, right? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Guys? Yes.
Yes, sir.
I thought that my voice is not audible. Not a problem. So guys, request from this DNS will come to this load balancer. Now this load okay guys, if someone is speaking and is not on mute, okay, not a problem. I will use my veto power here. Okay, so request from DNS will come to load balancer. Load balancer will forward request to target group. So this target group consists some web servers. So when we will try exploring it more, like in more detail, we will go into. So we will understand that what type of target group it is going to be, what are the type of servers we are going to have, what type of route table it is, where it is associated. It is in public route table, or it is in public subnet, it is in private subnet. We will discuss in tomorrow's session, because as I told you, today we are going to have like 10,000 feet overview only. Right? So this target group will be handled by some auto scaling group. We will have to define ASG, like auto scaling group. So as and when, like this auto scaling will hold the information of this load balancer and as well as this target group. So for example, we want to have some sort of like information set that if these servers are responding slow, if load on these servers are increasing or maybe reducing, then this auto scaling group is going to handle the particular number of web servers within this target group in order to ensure that cost is being used appropriately. Moreover, if our end users, our customers are facing some sort of slowness, so this auto scaling group, ASG means auto scaling group, is going to be responsible to create new servers and to put them in the same target group. Right? So this DNS will forward request to load balancer. Load balancer will distribute load among these these target groups. Right? So now this is, guys, very, very first and very important question, guys. Then how many servers do you usually have in your target group? This is a very first question. Note it down. Answers I'll give within a while. Second question, what is the particular load balancer algorithm do you guys use? Load balancing algorithm. This is second question here, guys. So guys, let me tell you, AWS provides couple of algorithm here. Let me define that. First of all, ELB works with round robin. This is the first methodology of load balancing which AWS provides. That is known as round robin. Round robin means, let us say we have 2 servers here. Let us call it 3. We have 3 servers here. First request will be forwarded to this server. Let us say this is EC2, right? This is second EC2. This is third EC2, right? So within format of round robin, this load balancer will forward request. First request will go to this EC2 machine. Second will go to this. Third will go to this machine. That is known as round robin. Am I clear, guys?
Yep.
Okay. Second methodology which we follow here is that is known as sticky session. So guys, I should not be calling it as a different algorithm, but this is a like feature on the top of round robin. What it does, let us say there are 3 servers kept in this particular load balancer's target group. If this user made a request and with the help of DNS, like we got the IP addresses of these web servers, this load balancer and everything, whatever happened here. So now whenever this user made a request, so request was forwarded to this particular EC2 machine, for example. The request was forwarded to this EC2 machine, right? So as and when this user is going to access this website within some certain period of time, maybe like we are going to define a time to live here for the for this stickiness session, maybe for 60 seconds, maybe for 5 minutes, maybe for 10 minutes, right? So if the same user is going to access our website within 10 minutes, then request will be forwarded to this EC2 machine only, right? That is known as sticky session. For example, if this user is trying to access the same website after 15 minutes, so that request will be treated as random and that can be forwarded maybe to this server or maybe to this server. But once again, as soon as this user gets the response from any of these server, that request will be strict. That request will be like bound to this particular single EC2 machine only for next 10 minutes. If user keep on refreshing the browser within 10 minutes, then request will be served from this EC2 machine only. That is known as a sticky session. So guys, are we clear with that? Like what is a sticky session?
Yep.
There will be one more interview question. You can make a note. What are the use cases of EC2 machine? What are the use cases of sticky session? Anyone would like to answer this? What are the use cases of sticky session? Yes, guys.
Like when the request has to come to the same server.
So that is what my question is, like what are the use cases here?
So whenever we have to put any kind of data entries like username or password, so in that kind of scenario, I think we can use sticky sessions.
Okay. Anything
if you are
else?
filling your form.
Okay.
If you want to call particular session means EC2, then we can use in heuristic session.
Okay, I have homework for you today. Stateful and stateless applications.
Is it when programming access to the EC2 instance?
Let's forget it. I have a homework for you guys today. You will have to study about stateful and stateless application and what are the use cases of it. Stateful and stateless application. Right? If you study this particular concept, then you will automatically understand the use cases of sticky session as well. Like for an overview, I can tell you like stateful applications, like when we are trying to maintain the session of a user, that is stateful. Stateless means, for example, there is a particular web page of Google, right? I need not to worry about anything. This is just like simple blank. This is simple, pure blank page. It does not contain anything. There is no processing required from the side of computer. Only index to testable page Google is serving here, right? Right, guys? So when we are talking about this sort of pages where no database connectivity is required. So guys, did you ever feel that before searching on Google, you guys had to log in before? Did you ever face this sort of problem? That before browsing any website, you guys were supposed to log into Google. No. So wherever your sessions are supposed to be available, your session are supposed to be made available. So in that particular case, what we are going to do here is, guys, we are someone is playing with mobile or maybe desktop, right? Keep on playing. Okay. So what we are trying to do here is, so stateful application consists of some database connections. Whenever we are trying to pull some data from database connection is required in order to make a request process. So that is known as stateful, and where database connection is not required, that is known as stateless application, right, guys? So when we are talking about this stateful and stateless, so these sort of applications are going to be responsible to decide whether a sticky session is required or not. So first of all, you will read about stateful and stateless application, then we will discuss it further, right? Is that fine, guys?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So second method which this is providing, that is least connection. Least connection. So what does it mean, guys? Least connection means, as I told you just before some time, that we might enable a sticky session here, right? So it could be possible that one connection is taking 10 seconds to get processed, one connection is taking like different type of request was there, and this server took only 1 second to process a request. So rather than distributing load equally, what we can do here is we can go with the least connection method. So for example, this load balancer will keep on checking within this target group that this EC2 machine has 50 active connection, this has 70, this has 30, right? And as the size of these EC2 machines are equal, so what should happen here? So this load balancer is supposed to forward the request to this EC2 machine rather than forwarding request to any other machine, right, guys? Because this machine has less number of connections. What is the drawback of round robin? This is forwarding request equally, because we already have implemented a sticky session here. This machine is serving 70 connection, this is 50, and this is 30. So what is the ideal machine in our case? This one EC2 machine. Like we can call it EC2 machine, like let us say third, right? This is going to be second. This is going to be EC2 machine number first. Right. So what is the number of connection here? Let us call it 30. 30 connection. This has 50 connection, and this has maybe 70, right?
Is it any dependencies there?
No dependency is there, because all the web servers have same sort of content, same sort of request these web servers are capable of serving. But what is the challenge? What is the challenge which we are facing here? In case of round robin will keep on forwarding requests in alternative manner if these are not stick to an individual server. But least connection is going to ensure that it will check first that what server has least number of requests serving right now. So whatever new request will come as random, so that request will be forwarded to least connection serving server. This is the third server which has only 30 active connections. So next request will be forwarded to this server. For example, after 30 seconds, this server has only maybe like 60 requests, or maybe it is serving 60 requests. In the meanwhile, within last 30 seconds, this server has reached to maybe some different number of requests here. For example, it has reached to 80 requests. Now this server is serving maybe 90 requests somewhere. Fine. So now next request, which is coming as random, that will be forwarded to this server, because these servers are already busy in comparison to this one. That is the use case of least connection. Are we clear with that, guys?
Round robin is like randomly it will pick it.
Yes, it will pick the servers, not randomly. That is sequential. First request, second request, third request.
Dependent connections. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So sticky session, we will assign any time period.
Yes, we have to define. So that can be from 60 seconds to like 7 days. Minimum 60 seconds and maximum 7 days AWS supports as of today. But like going forward during the particular AWS sessions, we might check that if AWS has modified these values further. Like up to before 1 week, it was like minimum 60 seconds, maximum 7 days it was. One more methodology AWS follows here. So that is known as weighted connection. Or you can call it weighted. So guys, what is the meaning of weighted here? What is the use case of it?
So we can specify the amount of or weight of the request to particular servers, like in terms of percentage, 30, 70, 60, 40, like that. That 60% request would be served by this target group or this server or zone A servers, or 40% by others.
Okay, guys, so let me tell you this thing. When we are talking about target groups, so weighted algorithm does not support individual instances. We need to have at least 2 target groups in order to implement weighted routing mechanism. For example, we can do like this, that for example, we sent a new release. Let us call it like release 2 or maybe 3. Let's call it 2. This is release 1. So when we send a new code, okay, guys, do not forget these are target groups, right? We have to stick to that TG, right? These are target groups. We have to keep in mind. So on RELEASE, spelling is mistake. So guys, this target group holds old application code, or maybe old code it serves. Like new release has been deployed to this target group. So we want to check whether the new release code serves the user well. For example, whenever we are going to create a new target group, we will put the same sort of servers behind it. Not same servers, but same sort of servers. With latest code, we are going to put behind this target group. So we would want only 10% users should be forwarded to this target group, and remaining 90% server users should stick to previous released code. Once we feel that the release is stable, we can forward maybe 50% traffic to this target group. Then we can forward the 100% target group, and we will increase number of servers within this target group itself, right? So that is a use case of weighted mechanism. Are we clear with that? So guys, do you have any question here?
Can you go once again? Weighted?
Please go ahead. Please ask question once again. There were 2 guys speaking in parallel.
Can you go once again for weighted?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So weighted means, okay, let us take some different example. For example, this target group, okay, let's talk about Flipkart, right? So Flipkart has mobile application, right? So for Android, version of this application is, let us say that is 6.2.23, right? Which is latest version which they are going to release. Over here, it is going to be Flipkart Android. Version is going to be 6.4.34, right? So what do I want here? I want that all the users who are going to be with previous version, they should be forwarded here. I will have a separate target group here, right? In case if someone is available, someone has updated the application version, then user should be forwarded to this particular target group, right? That is one use case. Moreover, let us say I am in some sort of R&D mode, research and development I am trying to do in form of, for example, I have modified the instance type for my application. Earlier, I was using maybe compute optimization instances, maybe C5.4x large. But right now I'm exploring that how would my application work with memory optimized instances, maybe M5.4x large or maybe M5.2x large, right? Applications code is going to remain same, only instance type I'm trying to change. So what will I do here is I will set two type of things, either based on the application version I can say I can have two target group and same load balancer, or based on the different instances I can create two separate target groups. This particular will contain only maybe M5.2x large. This particular target group will have C5.4x large, right? So I can easily analyze, because right now both have the same source code, but only compute instance is different. Only EC2 instance type is different. I can easily analyze that how this particular machine is performing and how this particular machine is performing, in order to go for cost optimization, in order to go for much better experience providing towards our end users. We can do these sort of things with the help of weighted mechanism here. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, guys? Okay. So this is like, these are the things which AWS is providing as of today. So like this is round robin, least connection, weighted, sticky session. So sticky session can, okay, one more important interview question, guys, here. Make a note out of it. Can I use sticky session as standalone or individually? Did you get my question? Can I use sticky session individually? Like I do not want to like implement round robin, least connection or weighted. Can I use sticky session alone? Who would like to answer the question, guys?
I say yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, I think we can, I mean, but not sure how, but I think we can, because we can keep a particular server for this purpose only. But
okay. Anyone else?
So we can use sticky section and least connection together.
No, dear. I said I do not want to use round robin or least connection or weighted mechanism. I just want to implement sticky session only.
No, yes.
Sign. What do you think?
I think no.
Okay. Anurag?
sorry, sir.
Anurag, what do you think? Can we use or not?
Yeah, I said yes, we can.
Okay. Balaji?
Yeah, I do think yes, we can use it.
Then I'm afraid to say the guys who are saying no are right. I don't know whether they know the concept or not, but the fact is we cannot use a sticky session as a stand-alone in order to go for load balancing. Because guys, sticky session gets enabled only after when we have any, because it is not a routing mechanism. It is not like load balancing algorithm.
Because it have to like first they have to like select the instance first of all. So we need something like round robin or least connection or anything.
Yes, sir, you are right.
Then
So
only we can assign the time.
yes, as I told you earlier as well, when I started explaining round robin and when I jumped immediate to sticky session, I said then as well that it cannot be work. It cannot work individually. I repeated this line then as well, that we have to select a routing mechanism. We have to go for routing algorithm first, then we can implement sticky session. Because first of all, the requirement of instance selection is there. Once we have finalized that yes, this instance is going to be responsible to serve individual type of request, only then we will jump to sticky session. Otherwise, not. We should be knowing about the reasoning as well, guys, right? Yes, Vardhan Tiwari, do you have any question here?
But I have one query. But for example, we can search Chrome, right? Everything, but we are not store that data, right? That is only static data, right?
Okay.
So we can check in Chrome anything that will not store any database. That is in static data only, right?
So that, as I told you, Abdul, so there are two things, either stateful or stateless application.
Yeah.
So it is not mandatory to enable sticky session. So once you will go through this particular statement, what is the stateful application, what is stateless application, then you will get to know like which type of application requires sticky session implementation.
But as per in a stateless application, we can write. I'm not
So
sure.
within stateless application, it is not recommended to implement sticky session because it is not connecting to any sort of database. It is just fetching information from the web server itself, and maybe from caching only, maybe from CDNing, and maybe some other places, and it is serving the data. It does not require to maintain the connection status. So if it is stateful only, then sticky session is useful. Otherwise, not. Although you can implement it, but that is of of no harm, and that is of no benefit.
Yeah, I can. For example, ICC application is there, but we can use first of all login page. That is static page. If you go for login, then you can transaction, then log out. That is in round robin. So if you before that static page, right? Yeah, without round robin, no is in static page. I can understand. But sometimes means searching time, we can lot of data will become, right?
Come again.
Yeah. For example, if you use in Flipkart, that is first page static page, right?
Right.
Before login. So after login, we can order. Then after that, we can log out. That in round robin. So we can we are using in sessions. Means transactions is there, different transaction is there. Then after log out, that will go to then again static page, right?
Right.
Yeah, that is in so no use here. So before that is in one concept. After here searching browsing.
What happens, buddy, here when we are talking about microservice environment? So different microservice can be placed behind different target groups, right?
Yeah.
And this particular stuff, which is known as sticky session, that gets implemented with target groups with individual target groups.
Yes.
Let us say one application has maybe, let us say we have servergan.com, right? And 5 different instance, maybe api.servergan.com is there, right? And then we have some sort of other component here. For example, we have mobile, or maybe we have mobile.servergan.com. Like all the requests of mobile will be served here. Let us say we have admin.servergan.com, right? Then after we might have any other like login.servergan.com. We have different URLs. So for different URLs, we will have different target groups. For example, api.servergan.com, I want to enable a sticky session. For mobile.servergan.com, I want to enable a sticky session. But for login.servergan.com, I do not want to enable a sticky session here, right?
Yes.
So because as I told you, like login.servergan.com will be served by this target group. Admin will be served by this target group. For API, there will be another. For mobile, there will be another target group. So I want, for example, for hypothetical example, I want to enable mobile.servergan.com with sticky session. Rest of will be running without a sticky session.
Okay.
So individual target group can be configured in a different way, right? So then after, guys, obviously we will have another load balancer here. We will have another ELB here. Then after this, there will be another target groups here, right? So over here, we are going to have application servers, right? This target group will hold application server here. These web servers are going to forward request to this DNS name of this load balancer, right? These target groups are going to forward request to this load balancer. Once again, there will be a particular load balancer in order to ensure that the particular number of connections, maybe the particular health check of these servers are working fine. If there is a requirement to create new instances, if there is a requirement to terminate these instances, right? During application or during deployment, whatever it is. Then after, finally, we are going to have a database.
Yes.
Right. So this is a high overview. This is a high, like 20,000 feet overview. But guys, when we are going to continue it tomorrow, so what we are going to do here is, so for example, we will see like how we are going to ensure that these application servers are going to be secure. How we are going to ensure that these target groups are accepting traffic from authenticated source only, right? What is going to be like the particular policy in this in this auto-scaling group, that after deployment, this like this auto-scaling group is going to ensure the refreshing of all the servers, that all servers should have latest code available. Let us say if we have master and slave replication, for example, this is database master, let us call it DB master. We are talking about MySQL. This is going to be DB master. This is going to be slave MySQL. So, for example, that my target group is making a query for read request only, for select query. So that should be forwarded here. If this particular application server is going to make a query for an update, maybe alter, maybe delete, like someone is trying to delete, it's on. For example, we are talking about a Facebook, right? So I want to delete my comment. I want to delete my post, right? So that will be a delete query here. Maybe I would like to edit my post, right? So that will be an update query here. So what sort of information actually I'm trying to make? So that request, there has to be decision making, right? For example, if we are talking about Flipkart, so like I want that all the servers, all the products, whatever are listed on the website, this should be very, very fast. So we will talk about here that where do we use Elasticsearch. We will talk about Elasticsearch. Moreover, Elasticsearch along with ELK stack, like Elasticsearch is used only for searching product very fast, but ELK is going to be used. For example, we have 20 servers here, we have 30 servers here, and we have other servers as well. So like if we have 50 servers and we want to see the logs of all the 50 servers in a centralized location, then how we are going to do it? Like we have 50 servers and we want to see the logs. So how we are going to manage logs in a centralized location, that sort of thing we are going to discuss. For example, we will talk about different type of databases. Maybe we will talk about Redis, we will talk about like Aerospike, we will talk about here CloudFront, we will talk about Varnish here. So different, like the very deep diving of the infrastructure, we are going to complete it tomorrow. Right, guys?
Okay.
So do you have any question related to this so far? Because see, this is, as I told you, request will go to DNS server, it will forward to load balancer, it will forward to target groups. Like insights of target group, we are going to discuss, for sure we will discuss how do we set up load like auto scaling group. There are inside view of auto scaling group, we are going to have like whether we are going to use launch configuration template, we are going to use launch template here, right? Launch configuration or launch template, what of component we are going to use with auto scaling. What type of load balancer it is going to be? Either it is going to be network load balancer, it is going to be NLB, it is going to be ALB, like application load balancer, it is going to be here. So that sort of thing we are going to discuss. Like it is going to be application load balancer, it will be network load balancer. If we have to place a load balancer before database, what type of network, what type of load balancer that is going to be? So we will start discussion about these things tomorrow. Right, guys?
Yeah.
So guys, now it's time to get the feedback. Any feedback for the session, guys? Anything positive, negative, because definitely like Rashika ma'am will try to reach you out, guys, for my feedback. So I would like to ask upfront. Abdul, any feedback for the session, buddy? Okay. Abdul is saying awesome. Rahul Kumar is saying great session. Any other one? You can speak it out, guys. I don't have any problem with that. Abhijit, what do you think of the session?
Yes, sir. Great session.
Okay. Ashutosh bhai, what do you think of it?
It was good. Sir.
Okay. Any other one would like to share some any feedback? Sabita Sahu, any feedback?
Yeah, it's very informative classes.
Okay, that is fine. So any other one, guys, who would like to share anything?
So just one question here, like if you have experience only with the on-prem, Like how do we tell about like ALB or Route 53? Like what are the devices?
I
we
will
have?
walk you through that. During this session, I will walk you through that how you have used these sort of servers.
Okay.
Be not to worry about. So, okay, guys, thank you so very much. I'll share the recording. This is going to be the final recording, which I'm going to be shared publicly. After that, like recording will be shared with like limited candidates only, whoever will be registered. Right, guys? Thank you so very much. Have a good time and happy learning. And thank you for your time and for the meeting for this particular session. And I hope that you guys enjoyed learning new things. Right?
Yep.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.